Hi guys, how are you doing? Let me just check. Awesome, I think it is on. So how are you guys doing in our first day of level 4? Yeah, so today I went out for essentials and it was a very interesting day. It was different from level 5. But today I wanted to come on and talk about something which gave me a nudge on my day off, which is a topic that it's critical, but we hardly ever talk about it until we are actually seeing, I'm going to call it the implications of that topic. And that topic, I'm going to share with you my screen as I go through the topic so that we can engage, so you can comment. The reason I didn't make this meeting on Zoom is that it was spontaneous. And after last night's spontaneous relating in relationships masterclass, I'm like, no, let me give you guys a break and just share on my wall. So let me share my screen. All right, my screen is showing me as sharing. Let me see here. So I'm sharing on mother wounds. It's the beginning of May, where we have Mother's Day coming up. And all of us are gonna be, as mothers, we're gonna be waiting for gifts. As children, we're going to be expected to be giving out gifts to our parents, But bubbling under the surface with most people and with most of us, depending on the individual's experience, we might not be having the most healthy mother relationship. And society, of course, the position of being a mother is held with such high esteem. When we don't have a great relationship with our mother, we might not have an outlet, we might not have an opportunity to address the wounds that come from that relationship or that encounter or that dynamic. And it differs from people's experience in terms of, were you the only child? Did you have siblings? Were they the same gender as you? Were you the son? Were you the daughter? You'll find stuff like someone saying, I was treated differently because I'm a girl compared to my brother. So I'm sharing this with you as stuff that I learned through my journey as a transformation coach. Some of you know that is what I do. So I just want us to be aware so that as we move into the month and into the big day of Mother's Day, we are dealing and processing our own individual story. So we are not being sucked into what we think is expected of us. So I need you to just check for yourself um, your motherhood story, your fatherhood story, your parenthood story. So by parenthood story, I mean, where were you raised? So was it community? Was it society that you lived in? If you didn't have parents, if you had both parents, how was that parenthood journey? When you look at your grandparents, if you knew them, how were they? Was for you, from your mom's side, was the mother there? Was the father there? From your father's side, in the under the fatherhood, was your mom's, the father's dad there? Was your father's father there? And then you move on to your own parents, because your own parents becomes your experience, and the parents have their own experience of you. You have your experience of them. Then we move into ourselves, which we analyzing our own parents, and then we analyzing now our own kids. How are we showing up in our parenting journey? So this is just for you to see what keeps coming up, what patterns are there. If you are going through your own, I'm going to call it pain, I'm going to call it depression, I'm going to call it anxiety, was your mom going through the same thing? So you want to check where that is coming from. So when I looked at my own story, for example, in my mother's side, distant story, like I don't know my parents, because by the time I was there, they had already passed on. From my father's side, I don't know much, you know. So the culture around them in terms of parenthood, I don't know. With my own mom, so I know my grandmother from my maternal side, but from my father's side, no, I don't know both, you know, so extended family. So there's those cousins I met, but it's nothing real because it's not people you grow up with. So for me, both parents are there, you know, and it's a different frame because they were not together. For my kids, both parents are there, but we are now co-parenting, which means there's a mix of my story, there's a mix of the other parent's story that we are negotiating in our parenting journey. So that is what you are checking for yourself and the quality of your own relationship. So I'm focusing on the motherhood or the mother wound because of May. I've explained that, you know, June is coming for fathers. So when we look at our mothers, I'm going to call it role to love, to nourish, you know, nurture, enable us to grow, you know, give us, I'm going to call it a firm foundation of who we are, of us being capable of being loved, you know. And when you look at these pictures, it's different seasons, you know. We are different with our sons when they're young. I'm mothering two sons versus when they are old. And there's a point where we need to let go. Some of us struggle with letting go. So this is where you start to see the quality of the relationship. Because when you move into a partnership with someone, how is that relationship between them and their mother? And how is your relationship between you and your mother? So in the masterclass last night, someone asked, what if there is no boundaries from parents? Meaning my partner has no boundaries with his parents, or I as a partner don't have boundaries. So my parents come in and have an input in our relationship. And the thing to look at is, do we have boundaries as the people in the relationship first? Do we have healthy relationships with our parents as individuals before we are a couple? So that we can start putting things into context and understanding where is the gap, instead of attacking the other person's parents, because that becomes the easiest thing to do, and then we start fighting as individuals. So the important thing is your emotional identity, your psychological safety or sense of safety, you know. When you look at your mother, when you look at yourself, do you feel safe emotionally around your mother, mentally around your mother? Is there times where words that scar you, words that remind you of the past, words that are abusive, words that, you know, are not really necessary for the moment, but you find yourself having that experience? Or you find yourself being the one who is the parent, even though you are the child. That is another situation altogether. So emotionally, you the one who then takes the role of protecting, you're the one who takes the role of provision, you're the one who takes the role of fixing the relationship. There has never been a true accountability from your parent in terms of what you feel. And this becomes a problem as you move on, because let's say the wound, you know, is rejection. The wound is maybe your mom is incapable of loving or nurturing. Fear, projection, because some people project, meaning their own fears, they put them on you. They speak to you in a way that whatever they feared about themselves, they will tell you to not be that, or they will call you those names, hoping to inspire you. But instead of inspiring you to be different, they inspire you to self-hate. They inspire you to self-doubt. So we need to check, because we think it's normal that mother-daughter relationship should be strained. So we don't even focus on working on those relationships, but we need to. And understanding the root cause of your own wound, but also your mother's wound, so that we can now start moving towards the journey of healing. So societal framing is important in terms of who were they at the time in society, what pressures was there, the pressures they had in terms of the family, in terms of what a woman was perceived to be, to do, allowed to be, you know. Relationship. This one is big, guys, because depending on what you experience or saw between your parents, someone said something very deep to me yesterday that when their father wanted to start a fight with the mother, they will start hitting them, knowing that this person is a firstborn. If I start hitting this child, my partner, which is my wife, is going to respond, and then we're going to start a fight. So she always finds herself in the middle of this fight. So whatever you are finding yourself in terms of the relationship, if the relationship has caused your mother to have depression, if the relationship has caused your mother to be incapable of loving herself and showing up as the best self that she could be, it is going to impact you as the child. It has, because by this time we're speaking as adults. But now it's time to go back and identify that for your own self so that we can start in the journey of healing. Because I normally say that if women go through any abuse, the wrath of that abuse, the frustration from that abuse, will be felt by her children as she is projecting, as she is, emotional capacity. Even now with the pandemic, when we are under pressure, we could find ourselves snapping at our kids, speaking harshly, because we are not having the inner capacity to deal with what is happening, be fully present. So our bandwidth is tested. There's not enough space. So we need enough space. So if you grew up in an environment where your mother never had enough space to be herself because of everything else, there is trauma that comes from that. And that pain is valid and that pain needs to be processed. The other big one is the reason you exist. And why am I putting as the reason you exist is if your mother had gone through a rape, an abuse where we come from, then the tension between us, meaning every time they see us, they are reminded of what happened. So we will feel that tension and there will be that crack, which we all need to work on. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes we found ourselves having wounded each other so badly that we think it's not possible to go back and heal anymore. So we need to check what are the root causes of our wounds, what are the root causes of their wounds. And then moving on to the journey of healing the wound. Because at the end of the day, the owner of the wound is the one who is living the experience and the impact of being wounded. And it will show up. It will show up in our low self-esteem. It will show up in our people pleasing. It will show up in our desire to earn love. It will show up somehow. It will show up in our need to be flashy. Some people buy something new every year. Hi guys. So that it is something that fills them up. So it's not really who they are, what they want, but it is a need. So emotionally absent, something that you needed as an affirmation, as a validation, meaning you never got it. So now it's time to learn how to give it to yourself. But think about it. If you grew up with an emotionally absent mother, how do you know how to be present? It is the work that you choose to do with the skills potentially that we have now. The other thing that makes me kinder to our parents and to our mothers is the work and the opportunities to heal we have now are totally hundredfold different compared to what they had in the past. So when I'm coaching someone who's 60 years old, I tone it down, way down, because I understand the generational gap that these people are totally coming from a different space. Threatening words and behavior, sometimes we are spoken to harshly and sometimes we speak harshly. And we will see these behaviors in how we are showing up in our own children. So our wounds will show up when we are supposed to show up to our own children. And if we are not willing to do the work, we will repeat the pattern. If we are not willing to take emotional accountability and responsibility, we will become emotional burdens to our own children. And it's not because we are intentionally doing it. It is because the wound is subconsciously operating through us. So one of the worst things about having an emotional abusive mother, she's completely unaware of herself. And here I'm talking about from a control perspective. So I'm not talking about someone who's intentionally harming you. I'm talking about someone who is controlling, in that whatever you do is not good enough. Whatever you do must be approved by them. If the moment you move out of script, there is a problem. There are words exchanged. And if this is not dealt with, and by dealing with it, there is a point where we all grow and say no to the mother in our lives. And those moments are the toughest moments, because how dare you? We even say, I was laughing, I was telling my sons the other day, my older son, I'm like, Snago, you forget I'm your mother. When I say you forget I'm your mother, I'm now using my position, to exert a certain outcome over him because I'm his mother. That should mean something very big. Then my son said, Mama, but you forget I'm your son. And then I asked him, what does it mean that you're my son? Meaning, hello, since you're my child, you should be, allowing me to be the mother. But in his world, we're saying we are equally important in this conversation. Our needs are equally important. So as much as you are my mother, I'm also your son. So we need to check, especially when our kids test us, what is being triggered. Because we normally say, I wrote a few days ago, guys, that disagreement does not mean disrespect. We've been taught that you do not disagree with a parent, because if you disagree, you're a bad child. But how do we then openly engage about things that are key for us to heal when there is no room to do it? When there is no room to be honest? We're basically saying, do not be honest. Let my word be final. Let what I say be the gospel. So we need to test ourselves when we are being overly critical to our kids, but also knowing where does that come from. Because if we are doing it, we got it from somewhere. I'm seeing some of your comments. I will check them just now. Let me just finish because this is spontaneous. So your wound, it depends how you live it. So check for yourself. How does your wound show up? Do you seek attention? When people don't give you attention, you want to die. Do you seek validation? Cementing your place in people's lives, working excessively hard to position yourself as someone who is needed, working to earn love. When you are working to earn love, how do you know? You are loved for what you do. And you start to know that you are loved for what you do. So you start feeling the need to keep doing. If you don't do, you feel that you will not be loved. You feel that you will not be accepted. And there's a point where we need to let go of that conditioning. Because when we move into romantic relationships, we're going to be working extremely hard and we're going to be feeling not enough because the insecurity of being rejected, of being abandoned, keeps on surfacing because there's no human being we can own. But it's not because of the relationship we're in, but it's because of the mother wound that we have. Seeking approval from people, seeking what you call it, people pleasing. So each person has a way of how their wound shows up. Being cold. Someone was telling me my partner doesn't know how to show emotion. And when I look back now with awareness, I can see that their mother never shows any emotion. Hardly laughs, hardly has never cried, has never been, open to the flow of life. Because sometimes we laugh, sometimes we cry. But when we are fully present, it becomes an easy thing for that to happen. Okay. I love this one. So for those who've watched the series, awesome. You'll follow. For those who haven't, you can go through the series. But what do I want you to note from the mother-daughter perspective? The relationship, she's consciously directing her daughter to say, this is what I want for you. This is who I want you to love. The kind of man I say is good enough for you. what I want you to be. So the child says, but this is your dream, not mine. So there's that conflict, that pull that you want me to be a mini you. And I do not want to be a mini you. I have my own dreams. So when you finding that conflict of your mother wanting to live through you for her own legacy survival, it's a fight again for your own identity to say this is who I want to be. And if that fight is not won, we then just wait in the shadows for finally coming out, for finally owning up to our truth, for finally being seen for who and what we are and what we desire. So we need to check the dreams I'm following, are they mine? The relationships I'm in, are they mine? Am I picking up my mother's struggles? Am I running away from my mother's struggles when I'm choosing partners? Someone is saying, I will never marry a man like my father. Am I running away from my father? So we'll deal with that in the father wounds. But with the mother wounds, especially if you are a female, because it's same gender, you really need to check what do I want for me, and how am I showing up to that, and what is the conversation between me and my mother. So if we are not willing to heal the wound keeps showing up. And guys, if we don't do constructive work, so what we do is we go through highs of happiness, and then when we are triggered, we bring out the past to harm each other with the past. So that becomes toxic on its own. That is why it is important to really go deep, dig deep, so that we can focus on what is it in this relationship between me and my mother that is causing me tension, and go through proper healing of that, so that we can imagine ourselves able to construct relationships we are functional in. But if we keep this thing hanging, it keeps following us everywhere. It keeps manifesting itself in different spheres. It, they keep meddling. They meddling because we haven't created a boundary that is healthy for them. And it is because we haven't healed how we see ourselves through them, and how they see themselves through us. So it goes both ways. Because if we are gents and we're in relationships now with our partners, but our mothers are still feeling they have the word, that is where the conflict also starts. So we need to check, who am I with my mother? What needs to be healed with my mother? What boundaries do I need to develop so that I can have a constructive relationship with my mother? And when we have done that, and when we are willing to do that, we can be able to have constructive relationships with ourselves, number one, but also with our children. So, key fundamental, guys, check your inner talk, check your inner beliefs, check your inner perspectives, because definitely they come from whoever raised you. In my conscious parenting class, I teach about the way we speak to our children becomes their inner voice. When I heard this, I was like, oh my God. So the tone of voice, think about your own inner voice, how you speak to yourself. There are people who say, I'm stupid. Why couldn't you get that? That inner voice that you all the time reprimanding yourself, criticizing yourself, berating yourself, belittling yourself, whatever it is. Who used to speak to you like that? Where did you learn that language? And how are you speaking to your children? Because for me, I'm very concerned about how are we speaking to our children? And the dynamics have changed so drastically for our children. When we were growing up, we played with almost kids from, all around, We could share, we could find similarities. It was easier to cope. With our kids, they are finding themselves mostly alone. They're finding themselves mostly dealing with their own reality. They are finding themselves, in a paradigm where they don't know how to say, I'm not okay here. We would laugh about being beaten because everyone was getting a beating. It was a natural, normal thing. But our kids, it's not normal. And we are not beating our children, but are we emotionally present? And that is what I would like you guys to check here. Let me check a comment. Okay. Yourself. Okay, let's see. Snako for president, no Masod. Okay, cool. No, you guys don't have questions. Guys, you can post your questions. We will take it from there. So check. Also check the fear of failing your mother. When your mother says, yo, I can't have my child be a failure. I can't have my child being divorced. I can't have my child. You constantly living in fear of disappointing your mother. So check your own narrative. So reflection work, before I let you go, I need you to check your mother relationship. So what are you going to be checking for? Tension or ease? Where is the tension? Is it sitting on your side? Is it sitting on their side? Is it sitting on the father side? So you can even do that work with both your parents. Who do you feel most tension with? Who do you feel most ease with? And what is the tension about? So that is the work you could do. The other thing you could do, which is very important, is looking at your father, looking at your mother, since the mother wound is what we are looking for. Emotionally, how was she? Mentally, how was she? Spiritually, how was she? Financially, how was she? So you can also do the dad here. And when you look at both of them, how are you? So who do you show up as? Who do you take after? So that you are clear about where your wounds are sitting. And if your dad was abusive to your mother, how come if you are easy on your dad but you're harder on your mom? If your dad was absent, how come you are harder on your mom who was there even though she wasn't perfect than your dad who was absent? So which parent are you harder on emotionally, mentally? Which parent are you most wounded by? That is what I'm looking or asking you to look and check why that is the case for you and see what help do you need for yourself. All right, comments. All right, cool. I'm not seeing anything. All right. So for some of us guys who are raising our only children, let's check also how we engage them so that we equip them for the future of relating with other human beings. Because if our children are the center of our world, they might wake up and want it to be the center of everybody's world. So it's important to equally equip our kids, especially now because we are more available and more aware. Can we equip them emotionally? In a voice, kids remember what you say about them, good or bad. So we need to be careful about that. If you say she's stupid, you're mad. When you're mad at her, she will remember such. Even, oh yes, even in small task or easy question. Yes, guys, the words you say to your child, especially when emotionally charged, is imprinting. It's like those teachers at school who called us stupid, who made fun of us in front of other people. We still remember them in terms of how much we don't like them. Then there are the teachers who motivated us, who saw potential in us, who encouraged us. We will remember them and keep thanking them all the way until we die. Because emotionally charged statements, words, imprint in us. So if you are the high authority in your child's life, in your children's life, and you are saying things, definitely it's going to impact them, and definitely it's going to be something that they carry through. Which is why when we say to girl children, or our children actually, don't speak up, don't talk back to me, don't, we constantly suppressing their voice. Then we grow up, we move into boardrooms, and it's time to speak. Do we have the confidence to speak? Do we have the confidence to challenge someone who looks older than us? So again, our issues come up: diversity of age, race, gender, stuff that we need to deal with. All right, so for those of you who are watching and saying, hey, I want to do something about my work, there's a healing journey class that you can contact me about, getting emotionally unstuck. This is mainly focusing on your own inner wounds, healing your own inner wounds, and being able to start to create a positive context for yourself and the people in your life which you have wounds with. And for those who are parenting and saying, I want to do better, I want to be conscious, I want to be awake in my parenting journey, this is focused on understanding how are you showing up in your own personal parenting journey so that we can do better. When we know better, we can do better. When we do not know better, we're going to continue in the path that we were raised from. But things have changed. And if we don't, if we're not aware that things have changed, the needs have changed, the wounds have changed. So we need upskilling. We need honest conversations. And we need to see our children as equal partners in the parenting journey. People normally laugh when I say when a child is born, a mother is born, because no one is born a mother. It's a skill we harness, it's a skill, and no child comes with a, what you call it, operational manual. No. And if you have more than one child, there's 3 manuals you are working with because spiritually, mentally, emotionally, our children want or need different things from us. So for us to have that capacity, we need to do some form of work. Awesome stuff. That is what I wanted to share. You can drop your questions or comments on the chat before I move off of your screen. All right. I'm not seeing any questions. So may you have a lovely evening. And as we, continue on our level 4, emotional tension, mental tension, social tension, may we have the courage to have honest conversations. Please, especially if you're raising people who are older than 9 years old, have honest conversations. Ask them how they're feeling. Someone was asking me to help their daughter who's in grade 12 because with this pandemic, they've lost out on an international trip, they've lost out on their matric dance. So they are feeling, this is something they've been looking towards for 12 years. And when 12th year come, COVID happened. So it's a sense of loss that honestly, as adults, we like, get over it. But it's not for a grade 12 who has been working hard to get that and to experience that. So we need to be gentle. We need to be gentle with our kids. We need to be gentle with their needs, even if we don't understand them, because potentially we were not in the same situation they are in or with the same opportunities they have when we were at their age. So please, parents, please have open, honest conversations where your kids can say how they feel and you can hold the space for them to be vulnerable. And you can also be vulnerable because when we can be vulnerable, our kids can see we are human. But when we are superheroes, Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, our kids, when they go through these things, they don't know how to show up because they think this is not normal. So that is something that we can do. Please arrange something for kids motivation. We can talk. Superior, we can talk, definitely. So with kids, I've decided teaching is easier because you want to upskill them emotionally, you want to upskill them mentally, you want to upskill them to know how to create differently. Instead of waiting until it's time for coaching, where we are now moving into dealing with certain issues. So we really need to look at rather proactive upskilling. So kids, that's why I actually started coaching for high school kids to shape the mind while it's still there. Thanks, we're gonna do that. Open conversation with our kids. Yes, thanks, Moss. So yeah, guys, have an awesome evening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think you have the details, you have my inbox. So if you're on my Facebook, we can always chat. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, bye.